Welcome back to All Things Pink. I am your host, Julie Majors, and I'm so excited today. We are going to be talking about women's health and all things for women over 40. And today we're celebrating a very special woman in health. Please welcome to the show my really good friend and colleague, Christina Brockett. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. We're going to be talking about some really important things, especially like about you. So, if you could just kind of tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, what you do, and especially something that I find interesting, if you can tell us what integrative health means.
I am the owner and founder of Encompass Integrative Wellness, and I am a licensed clinical nutritionist. And basically, at the end of the day, to really keep it simple, I utilize food and lifestyle changes to help my clients feel better. I mean that is at the end of the day really where it goes. But the integrative part is about the connection between the brain and the body. What it goes on with our brain can actually have chemical changes in our body. And then there's another component which is really looking at the cause of dysfunction in the body, and that's kind of like a functional medicine type of an approach. And it's really looking at how things like sleep and stress and all of these huge things exposure to things in your environment, trauma, all of these things can affect different parts of your body and different parts of your health. And, what people underestimate is how what they eat, the lifestyle they live can actually help heal those things.
Exactly. And I just want to take a moment to kind of put a little backstory to this. Um, Tina, you worked with my nonprofit for years, it feels like, and I was so lucky. It was funny. The
Was
first,
it 7 years?
oh gosh, has it
It's
seven?
7 years.
And you provided so many services that I think, when we announced we were going to do a nutrition class, if you will, it was so much more than a class. It was so deep and it really helped explain things to people versus just, eat this. This is good for you, like charts and stuff. And just so everybody is aware, the class population was people that suffered from substance use disorder and mental health issues. And so you made it so relatable. I mean, this is some serious stuff. Like we're talking about like neurotransmitters and like all kinds of craziness, and the way you were able to convey this to them, and we have like piles of feedback forms and just from the facilities and how much they loved that class and how much it changed uh, their lives. I mean, I thank you so much for doing that for so long. And we would have, it was because of funding is the reason we couldn't continue those classes. But it is such an important job, and I just want people to understand that, like, how important that is to do. So, it's I wish everybody I would say that too. I would say this class is not just for our target population. I sat in them. I've learned so much, and we could literally sit here and talk for an entire day, probably like months, over different issues. But we won't, not today. So tell me, what do you think the hardest part of your job is?
I think the hardest part of my job is the very thing that you just touched on in that class, which is helping people understand how food is more than just, hey, I'm hungry, I'm going to throw something in my mouth, or how what you eat matters. It affects your body just like you would a medication or something like that. And the other piece to it is food is emotional, it's traditional. It has all these different layers and different behaviors are rooted, yes, in your upbringing, but also maybe your finances or your belief system. So, what I provide to people is beyond just here's your diet plan or something like that. It's about learning how to harness food and lifestyle change to really better yourself. And people don't really think about food that way. Like, I look at food and I'm like, okay, today need this in here and I need that. And I need to support my body. I'm feeling this. So I'm going to support my body in that way. And then I feel better. And then I check in with myself. So, it's helping people understand that difference. And, my husband says it's an uphill battle. And I think it is because unlike working out or going to a yoga class or whatever, some of those changes take time before you really start to feel better and notice it. It's not an instant gratification situation. You go work out.
Like any improvement,
Yeah,
it's never that way.
no, it's not, but people don't view food that way. It takes time to unravel a lot of that, just like going into therapy. I mean, you're going to one therapy session and you're like, "Woohoo, I'm
Well,
great."
people want it to work like that, but you're right. And it's like a lot of awareness needs to be developed before I just like with therapy, just like with working out, like there's awareness of improvements or setbacks or it's a lot more,
It is.
I think,
It
than
is.
people think. Could you find that that's one of the biggest things is trying to get people to wrap your head, like strap in, it's a long journey, but that's okay.
Yeah, and whenever I do any of my sessions, and this like is just how I roll, and that's how my classes roll, which is to say that I really believe in educating and empowering my client population because at the end of the day, if you are one step better than you were when you walked in my door. And then you have the knowledge to go forth and do something about it to make yourself or help yourself feel better or maybe deal with a diagnosis that you've got or something like that. And it's hard, but once that education happens in those sessions or in my classes, people are like, the light bulb moments
Yes.
happen, and it's really exciting for me.
And it's exciting for me too. I've actually had those while just viewing your class, and I carry them with me, and I talk about them, I take them, to other conversations, and it's very fascinating, the whole working of all of it, and how do you change one thing, like, sometimes it's just one thing, and I know that it doesn't replace going to a doctor, we never want to say that, it's not, but I have seen tremendous health improvements, and I've heard stories where, like, just changing the nutrition piece can literally help people not have to either take as many medications or, such a profound change in their health, like to where they're like not just feeling better, but relying less on medication. Do you find that that's
Yeah, and I never contradict what a doctor tells my client population or anybody that's in my classes. And if you've ever been in one of my classes, I'm going to say, yeah, you need to consult your doctor about that. But there is changing in the medical community. But a lot of my clients that come to me, they're given a diagnosis and they're on medication and they don't want to be on medication. And I say to them, and they say to their doctors, to their credit, I
yes.
want to give food and lifestyle a try. Either I'll start this or I'll, whatever the case is, or maybe I'll hold off on starting and see if I can affect change. And when they are given the tools, both this is why you're doing it, this is why it's helpful, and let's talk about how you can make this happen in your life.
Mhm.
Because, and I would even do that in some of my classes, right?
Yes.
Like, how could you make this happen in your life? Because everybody's operating from a different space, they have different belief systems, different skill sets. And so, if you get that strategy in place, and you put a little bit of the effort in, So you've got, you have a problem, you have an idea of what you want to do. Now you have a plan. If you execute against that plan more often than not, I mean, I've had people completely reverse non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, completely reverse it and lost a tremendous amount in that case. Not the weight is my focus, but lost a lot of weight. And their doctor's like, oh my gosh, what did you do?
Yeah.
And she's like, I just changed what I was eating. And she didn't, there was so much she didn't know, like drinking sweet tea all day, not really helping your cause. And this is why. You know what I mean? So yeah, I have had a lot of successes in that regard. And again, it's points back to a lot of things, but a lot of it is educating and empowering people.
Mhm.
Because if you understand why I'm making that recommendation, you're going to be a heck of a lot more likely to do something about it.
Right, and I think that's what is fantastic about the work that you do is it, and I said it before, making that relatable, it empowers people when they understand, and I think that is just super important. Do you have other success stories?
Yeah, I do actually. I mean, I have worked with people who come to me, and this is one of the things that's kind of crazy to me. And you and I were talking about this before we began, which is they come to me as nutrition as the last resort because it's like, I've tried all of these other things. Maybe I'll give nutrition a try. And they're shocked to find out that what they've been experiencing, they could have felt better 20 years ago. Um, and so I've had people that have been to doctors for multiple years in a row, and I slow down long enough because that's kind of the nature of my practice to ask very crucial questions. And they're like, wait a minute, oh my gosh. And we start changing things and we find problems that were at the root of their issues that nobody explored or that they didn't know was a problem.
Yeah.
And then it's resolved. And they're like, I've met with 10 doctors over 2 years, and nobody asks these questions. And
Heartbreaking. That's just
but that's the thing though, because that's my job. Yeah, it's my job. And I look at all of that stuff and I ask the questions and I do a deep dive in my sessions with people. And, a lot of people feel like they've never been heard.
right.
And that is the other thing, because in the current model, a lot of times you're in and out and you're not being heard, or people aren't really listening to what they're saying. And I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense.
Right. Right. And well, that's, I think, across the board, like not feeling heard, not understanding, you know, you have to advocate for yourself. We know we're in a time where we need to do that. And so seeking out those kinds of services, I believe, is advocating for yourself, trying to understand, trying to be aware. It's almost a requirement anymore, especially for your health.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people, and I have to say, especially women really feel a lot of this. I think that a lot of times what I've heard in my practice is women feel dismissed when they are expressing concerns over something. And, when they go back to their doctor and I am talking to them and they've had a session with me, and I'm like, okay, here are the questions, or here are the things that I might explore or ask. And this is why. You do with that information whatever you wish. But these are the things, the areas that I think we need to explore. And sometimes it's spot on, and other times I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying, go explore these things with your doctors, educate yourself, and now they've got those tools to be able to have those conversations.
Speaking of women,
Yes.
do you take and being one, do you think in your profession, do you find challenges being a woman in the profession, or maybe challenges and benefits to being a female in this particular field?
I think that the biggest challenge as far as being a female in this field. I think most of the people that are in this field do what
I kind of hear that.
are mostly women anyway. So I think that there's a natural propensity to be in this field. We're naturally kind of caretakers. Um, I think the biggest challenge there is, this work that I do can be very draining, because you would not believe I've got boxes of tissues in my office. I mean, I practice medical nutritional therapy. And I also do coaching, but it's, there's a lot. And if you are also a mother, then you have to shift gears and that would be a lot. But by the same token, it's like any weakness is a strength. And I think in that role, I am better positioned to be really listening and I can relate to the challenges people have in a lot of aspects of their lives. And, so I think it's both a weakness and a strength. And I do think that there are times, unfortunately, in this general world that sometimes as a female, you still get dismissed.
I think that's very common.
Yeah. Like, what do you know? And I'm like, well, actually, I know quite a bit. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But just because I'm a female, it's just, and I'm not saying everywhere, but it does
Right.
still happen.
I feel like that's actually, as far as we've come, have we come so far? Because I feel like I've been an advocate for years and I would still get dismissed. I'm like, for goodness sake, I'm a CEO. I'm, a high level advocate. This is what I do every day. I know what I'm talking about, but yet people will still doubt it. And I'm like, why? Like because I'm a female, like you doubt those, capabilities and the experience. And I think that it's insane in 2025 that we're still talking about it, but I think it's real.
It is so real. And I do think that um unfortunately when women are in a healthcare setting, when they are out there and they're trying to get somebody to listen to what they're saying, I find more often than not than and this is what I'm hearing from my clients. But I also have experienced it,
Right.
that if it is a female provider listening to a female patient, or in my case, client, they tend to listen more to what is being said and or not said than if it is a male provider. I had a situation just personally where I had to get surgery on my hamstring, and I interviewed multiple doctors because at that point in time, nobody was doing this surgery. I was patient 10 of one doctor doing it. Like,
Wow.
it was not done. Here's the surgeon for the gnats. It was kind of funny. But bottom line is, when I was interviewing people, if they sat and they spoke to my husband about my surgery, they were off my list.
Yeah.
But that's what happens in our
Okay, I can't believe that's still happening. Like I literally it's
your it is. It was literally my surgery, my
your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
wow.
Yeah.
That's
Craziness.
that's mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Well, it still happens.
Oh, wow. So speaking of, and I talk about this a lot
Yep.
on this show about being a mom,
Yep.
being a professional,
Yeah.
um, what I call an independent, powerful female, and trying to balance everything. So if I'd love to hear your viewpoint on like the challenges of doing this job and owning a business and having multiple projects and being on boards and we both share that where we are doing what feels like 100 million things at one time with all the balls in the air and having kids.
Well, I think there are multiple aspects to that, right? Being a business owner is hugely challenging, as you know,
In and of itself.
in and of itself. Then the positive to that is that you can find ways to really be there and be present for your kids. The negative is there's times when you can't. And that's just the way it is because you have to deal with this. There's nobody else to deal with. Yeah, X, whatever X is. So I think in that regard, it is both positive and negative. I think that for me personally, um, really being able to be present for my kids as they were growing and developing and really being a part of their lives, but by the same token, doing what I do had multiple purposes, right? I could be present, but by the same token, both of my children recognize today and respect how much I was involved in their lives, but by the same token, devoted myself to my business. And
And to helping other people.
and to help other people. People say, "What do you want for your kids?" And I'm like, "I want them to be independent, compassionate, loving human beings. And beyond that, do whatever floats your boat." Now granted, they're both doing wild things, but wild in a good way. But my point to all of that is to say that I think that as empowered females, for our daughters, we are showing you can do it and you have to make hard choices sometimes, but you can do it and do it well.
Yeah.
And to our sons, it's showing you need to respect whatever dreams and aspirations the females in your life, if that's who your partner is, if it's a female, are doing. And I think that it is great messaging, no matter.
I used to too. And showing them how hard this is, but the rewards of that it's possible, it can be done by giving a really good. I know my kids see how hard it is. It's not easy. There is no instant gratification in any of it. And I feel like it's kind of funny. Like your kids probably heard about food and nutrition and health like their whole lives. And mine heard about laws and what a felony is. And like don't do this, right? Like they got this, all these different views.
They get different lessons, right?
But it was great, like, because I'm just like, don't do this or this is what will happen. And, do you understand what this one is? It's really interesting. But I think the value is exactly what you said for our daughters. Like, let's be that example. And I think that it's such a cool thing. My mom was really independent and she was the breadwinner. And so everyone's like, well, we can tell how you became that. My dad was a stay-at-home dad, but they both were really good with picking up one side versus the other, completely non-traditional way. I think it's great. And I said it to every one of the women that comes on this show who's a mom. It's not easy to balance all that stuff, but I think there's a benefit. I think it's a gift.
It is a gift. And, in my family, my mom was a night shift nurse, had a broken family. My father had his own business. And, I learned a tremendous amount from him growing up with his business, but even with my mom and her doing everything she could. She worked night shifts so she could be around for us during the day. Some days I know she could barely I mean, to this day, we still joke that, like, which cup of coffee is mom on because she still works as a night shift nurse. And you don't talk to her before the first cup of coffee. Like, that is her time. And then,
Oh, I hear you. I got that time too.
like, as far as like what I in particular do with nutrition, it's also a really interesting balancing act. And I saw a lot of this actually with COVID in my teenage population. Yes, I talk about food, but I take a really, I have a handle that I use sometimes, the normal nutritionist, because food can be often very demonized. And don't get me wrong, there are things that I don't like in food. But everything with a perspective and moderation, because I have seen scenarios where both male and females take it, especially in the teenage population, to the nth degree and end up with like disordered eating patterns. So, although my kids got a lot of messaging, I also, they might be like, "Oh, I shouldn't eat that." I'm like, "Why not?" And they're like, "But it's not good for me." I was like, "Do you eat it every day?" "Well, no." "Enjoy dessert." Because I don't want that stigma.
Right.
That gives
Right.
facial like intuitive eating and things like that, but it's really important. Really important.
What would you say to a younger woman who wanted to go into this field?
Wow, that's tough. Um, I think the biggest thing as far as even my field is that understand if you want to go into this field, there are different facets and different uh things that you could do in this field and with this particular degree, but also understand that the landscape is constantly shifting and you have to be able to adapt to what is coming your way. And that's not always easy. You know what I mean? It's not just about understanding what, you have in the books. There are medical changes and advances that impact what we do, but there are also different things in the business landscape of what we do. And you have to figure out how to navigate those waters. So if you're looking for something that is always going to be consistent and it's just this way, then some of what I do probably isn't for you, but if you have that ability to adapt and shift
And constantly learn.
and constantly learn. I mean, people joke. They're like, "What are you reading?" I was like, "Well, professionally or personally?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm reading like 6 or 7 books on any given day and studies." So like studies about different things that are coming out because you have to stay on the forefront
Yeah.
of everything that is coming your way so that you can best serve your.
But yeah, and I feel like that's like really important though. Like for anyone at the top of their game to always be doing that, like to always be learning or to always be expanding what you're doing, evolve with the time, because I hear that a lot with healthcare providers of all types, like that they just haven't learned anything else. I mean, it's funny when I'm working with an attorney that I have to say, well, that law changed, like 2 years ago or even 10 years ago. I'm like, this is what it says now. So if you're not staying on top of it,
You don't know.
you cannot help people to the level that you could. So I think that's great. And I think that's what gives professionals like you that advantage. And that's take a note of that when you're accessing her services that, we're staying on top of our game. And that I think is really important.
You have to. You have to.
Yeah. Yes.
Failure is not an option.
This is why we're friends. We're friends. Because no, failure's not an option. And I was talking to an attorney. We talked about like how special what she does is. And she is a civil rights attorney, and she made the comment that it's personal to her. She wants to help them. So she has to be the best that she can, because it's her job is to help them and to be always kind of on top of everything. And there's this level of pressure with that. Like you have to be, you got to bring it every day, So that is a lot of pressure, but I think it's because we hold what we do. It's so important. We care about it.
We care.
Yeah. And that's really important. I have a thing that I ask everybody because I find that, women over 40 were of a specific age. And I think the definition has changed over the years. If I look at some of the much, much younger women, I ask, like, who's your mentor? And I get some crazy stuff. And sometimes I even get like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, like, so I always ask, who are your mentors?
You know, I would say that my mentors, they shift and change based on where I am in whatever it is I'm doing, because I have been so incredibly blessed to be exposed to amazing women, but also really strong men, that
Yeah.
have their own businesses and, really be able to have them act as a sounding board and give me guidance. And I always tell people, I'm not afraid of what you have to say to me. Like if
Hmm.
I have a pretty tough skin, I may not like what you have to say, but if I'm asking you, give me the feedback, and I've gotten feedback from people younger than me, people my age, people older than me, and, learned from what they're doing, what's working, what's not.
Right.
It just varies because it shifted, from the beginning of my practice to now. Some of the people are the same, some of the people are new, some of the people, have come in and out at different points. It just ebbs and flows. I wouldn't say I have any one person.
I have yeah, I have a whole list, but I love that, because honestly, the entire reason why I started doing the Celebrating Women In series is because I've been asked that same question, and I said, "Well, I have a list," but I have a huge list of women that I've worked with, women that have been colleagues, and become friends, that inspire me. And I said, if I had to sit down and like list this, wow, the amount of strong women who've influenced my life in some way or who've inspired me to reduce the amount of peanut butter I eat. No names mentioned. But or have affected me or I've learned from. It's huge. And I said, "All right, well, we're gonna celebrate them all."
The beauty, I think, of being able to take and learn from one another, it creates a tapestry of your career, and you are not, that influence. You're getting bits and pieces from different people, and I think from just a sheer like humanity perspective, we are um, better for it.
And I think so too. I think in a lot of ways it's what makes us successful. Just to kind of like recap, I'm talking about how you came into what I was creating, and I wouldn't have been able to do all of that without what you contributed and what other colleagues contributed to it. And that's what makes it's a wonderful story, but it's positive and I think that and there was never competition. It was just like you're doing your thing, I'm over here doing my thing, and we're kind of like helping each other.
Yeah.
And I find, you know, that that's the way it should be. That's what works. When women are helping women, they're powerful. Like that is powerful.
Absolutely. And there are groups of women that I'm involved with, and we all like support one another, and it's fantastic. And I've learned from them as well.
Yeah. What do you think it means to be a strong, empowered woman in 2025?
Wow, that's really shifted. And I think being a strong and empowered woman is also knowing your boundaries, really having good boundaries. Because I think traditionally, looking back at even like my mom's evolution and whatnot, and even my own, you know, w- you need to be able to exert those boundaries. And I'm seeing the beautiful development in my daughter, and I'm like, you said that? She's like, yeah, I said that because it's not good. It's not okay. Like, this is where I am. But I look at myself back at that age, and I didn't have that at that point in time confidence to set those boundaries. And so I think it's about boundary setting. It's about being compassionate, but also figuring out what makes sense for you and what's right for you, and making sure that you put the oxygen mask on first. Seriously, because we have a tendency, I don't care if you're married, if you have children, if you don't, women inherently have that caretaking nature. And sometimes they'll go do everything for everybody else at the expense of themselves.
Yeah, we're drowning, but yet holding up the boat, like
Correct.
trying to make sure that everybody else is good.
Yeah.
And that's where that work life, personal balance, the whole balance of everything has to come into play. And it's totally okay. It's totally okay. I mean, but that I think comes from traditional. roles. And I think, I've tried to word this correctly. I can tell that you already know where I'm going with that. I think this traditionally and in a very draconian manner, we've been expected to, and now we're kind of like, no, like this is how this is gonna go, and it's okay, and you can do that without being like a crazy person. Like you can do that without being disrespectful. You can ask for the things that you want. You could set those boundaries and enforce them in a positive way.
And this honestly holds true for whether you are a working out of the home individual or even working inside the home only. Like, I think that being an empowered female, the idea of setting boundaries and taking that time for yourself crosses every spectrum of being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So where can people find you? Where can people sign up for your services or get more information?
Yeah, so I the best thing to do is to probably go to my website, which is eiwellness.com. So encompass integrative wellness. So EI, like Emerald Isle, eiwellness.com. And there you will find insights that I have, blog posts, events. I am launching the anti-inflammatory table, which is both a in-person and virtual offering where people have the opportunity to learn how to take their food and create a lower inflammatory lifestyle. Inflammation is the root of pretty much all dysfunction in the body. But also to get exposure, we do field trips, virtual and in person field trips to different places, like a restaurant, to have an anti inflammatory meal. And you get to understand why what you're eating is good for you.
It's really is amazing.
Just to try and take this conceptual idea, make it real with how you can live it in your life. It's designed to be a community group kind of programming. So coming into it is a little bit easier than one-on-one, but I do still offer one-on-one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. We are going to be welcoming Tina back, hopefully for multiple episodes, because this topic has so many subtopics and so many important things for women over 40 that you have to come back and join us. Don't forget that we post weekly here on All Things Pink. We want to hear from you. If you have questions, especially any questions about today's episode, please send us a message. Find our website, which is allgreatthingsllc.life. There you'll also find information about our other channels, our other wellness programs, which we are so excited about. Thank you again to the agency for allowing us to record in your space. You can also find us on Apple and Spotify if you want to listen to this podcast, or find us on YouTube. If you're watching YouTube, please like and subscribe, like I tell you every time. So thank you again, and can't wait to see you next time here on All Things Pink.
You gotta get out there and explore, baby, let your love